Hi guys, so I'm here today to do a book haul, and you know what the score is with these, so let's get into the books. The first two books I have to show you are the two books that I've bought myself since my last book haul, and I kind of looked at them as sort of birthday presents to myself. A couple of friends visited me for my birthday, and one of my friends was here a little bit longer, so we popped into a couple of bookshops on her last day and I picked myself up two books. The first book I picked up is Safeties by Katherine Buettner. This I got in a second-hand bookshop called Scoob in London, which has got a really amazing selection of second-hand books. It's a real treasure trove in there, and this cost me £4.50, I believe. It is a novel retelling the Greek myth of Alcestis. Now, I was so pleased to find this, and I'm so glad it had such a clear title on the spine, because I'd never heard of it, and nor would I have looked for it on the bookshelf because of that. So it just jumped out at me when I was in the fiction section. I just saw the Greek word and was all over it. The myth of Alcestis is that she gives up her life in order to save her husband. Her husband has been offered a deal in which he can live if somebody will give up their life for him, and nobody else is willing to do it except for his wife, so she gives up her life so he can live, and she goes down into the underworld. However, Heracles actually saves her. So this book is about her time in the underworld, so it's about her perspective on what's going on, perhaps why she gave up her life, what it was like to do that, how did she feel about her decision once she'd made it, not knowing if she was going to be saved or not, assuming that this was the end. And yeah, it just says it follows her few days in the underworld. So I'm really excited for this one. I love a good Greek myth retelling, and I love discovering new ones. The next book I'm actually almost finished, and it is a collection of poetry called Don't Call Us Dead by Denis Smith. This I picked up in Gaze the Word, which is a fantastic independent bookshop in London that everybody must visit at some point if you're here. And I spotted this one on the bookshelf, and my friend Jen had actually been talking about it and it looked familiar, so I messaged Jen saying, is this the book you were telling me about? She confirmed, so I had to pick it up. Denis Smith talks about race, about sex and sexuality and relationships and growing up and being HIV positive, life and death, and living with an illness like that through his poetry. And it's very powerful, it's very impactful, it's very hard-hitting, difficult to read. It kind of punches you in the gut when you're reading it and leaves you feeling really taken aback almost, but in a really good way. It's well done poetry, and I'm enjoying experiencing it. I was gifted two books for my birthday as well, so I will show you those next. And the first one is The Inking Women, 250 Years of Women Cartoon and Comic Artists in Britain by Nicola Streeton and Kath Tate. This was a gift from a good friend of my mum's who is like another mother to me. So she got me this for my birthday, and actually her partner Kate, who is another family member, is in this because she is a cartoonist and an illustrator, so that's really nice that somebody I know is in here. And it's got such a selection of things. I mean, 250 years, of course, there's loads in here. That's just a little flick through there. So I think if you're at all interested in women artists and cartoons and graphic novels and illustration and women working in creative fields, this is one that you should definitely check out, and I'm really excited to dip more into it. And then another friend of my mum's gifted me a gorgeous second-hand book called The Golden Age by Kenneth Grahame, who is the same author that wrote The Wind in the Willows. Annie just has lovely taste, and she always finds really beautiful pieces, and she's gifted me vintage books before, and this is another beautiful one. I mean, look at that lovely cover. It is illustrated by Ernest H. Shepherd, who also illustrated Winnie the Pooh, and it's got little illustrations inside. And I think this is lovely. I loved Wind in the Willows when I was a child, so I'm definitely intrigued to read this little one, which I'd never heard of before. Oh, and sorry, this is also a children's classic. I was then sent some books by the publishers, and the first one I was so excited to receive a proof copy of, and that is Clean by Juno Dawson. Juno Dawson is an author. She writes both non-fiction and fiction, and I've read quite a few of her books, I think 5. Her fiction is YA fiction, and this is the latest young adult fiction of hers to be published. This one is about a main character who's addicted to drugs and goes into rehab, and it's about getting clean, but also kind of what's going on in this rehab facility. I think there's something a little bit darker going on there. There's often quite a dark twist, a bit of a mystery, almost verging on the kind of thriller or horror genre with Juno Dawson's work, and I think there's something creepy going on here too. But I also think it's such an interesting theme. It's not one I've seen dealt with a lot in young adult literature, which does surprise me because lots of teenagers do drugs. It's really not that uncommon. So to kind of see that being dealt with in a book, and especially the darker side of that, is I think really important and really interesting, and I like the way that Juno Dawson incorporates these kind of more important themes into really just compelling page-turning novels. And although this is a proof, the book itself comes out on the 5th of April. I then have 2 books that were sent to me by Pan Macmillan. The first one I requested, and it is a cookbook. It is Solo by Signe Johansson. This is the same woman that wrote How to Hygge, which I also have. I did actually a whole video on How to Hygge for the Pan Macmillan channel when I ran it, and this is all about the joy of cooking for one. So it is meals to cook for one. The ingredients are usually for one portion. They're things that you don't need somebody else around to enjoy cooking for, and I think that's really nice because a lot of recipes certainly do cater for 2, if not 4 people in cookbooks, and sometimes it's not that easy to divide the recipes down, or it's hard to buy ingredients that aren't going to go to waste. So I like the concept of this being aimed at cooking for one, because I cook for myself a lot of the time. This is not a vegetarian or vegan cookbook, however. I'm a vegetarian and I cook vegan most of the time. So I would say if you're vegan, not for you. There's not, like, I don't think there's enough vegan recipes in here for it to be worth it, if any. There are a few vegetarian options in here though, as I've been flicking through, certainly enough for me to give a shot. So if you're vegetarian, it might be worth checking out if you don't mind cookbooks that you can't cook everything in, and there's also sweet things and things in here. The next book I didn't request, but I'm actually really pleased I was sent because it sounds brilliant, and that is Bored and Brilliant. How time spent doing nothing changes everything. This is just a non-fiction book about letting go and not needing to be busy all the time, and kind of spending time in that nothingness almost, and then I guess getting past being bored doing nothing. So I personally don't think I get bored very often anymore. Something I definitely said a lot when I was a teenager and things like that, but now boredom is not a feeling I would say I experience a lot, but at the same time I also think I need to remember sometimes and remind myself to appreciate those moments of doing nothing, and to sometimes almost seek out boredom, but in a more positive sense, which I think is what this book is about. And it's not very long, so I'm definitely intrigued to read it and see if it's just quite a inspiring kind of non-fiction life book. It's less than 200 pages yet, so hopefully I will get to this one very, very soon. The next book I have actually hauled before because I was sent a proof copy of it, but the final copy was sent to me and it's so beautiful that I have to share it again, and that is The Gloaming by Kirsty Logan. Have you ever? Naked hardbacks are already my favourite kind of books, so this was in good stead with me, but it's just stunning. We've got a little bit of foiling, these 2 mermaids, and I'm just in love with this. This is Kirsty Logan's second novel, her first novel being The Gracekeepers, and it's set in the same world as The Gracekeepers, which is a sort of magical realism world with folklore inspiration in there that is entirely flooded, essentially. There is little bits, pockets of land, but unlike our world now, it's pretty much flooded. There's small communities that live on tiny islands, and then there's other people who live on boats or platforms on the water. And this book is set there but follows completely different characters, so I'm really excited to go back to that world of the Gracekeepers. I feel like there was so much potential in that book for more world building, more magical realism, that I'm really excited to get that from this new book. But you definitely don't have to have read The Gracekeepers to read this one. So this one is perfect for people who love mermaids, and I'm also thinking that there's LGBT themes in this one as well. My next book was actually in my Page Habit subscription box, which is a subscription box I do get for free. They do send it to me, but I'm not sponsored by them in any way, and I'm subscribed to the thriller mystery box, and my new thriller mystery is The Glass Forest. a novel by Cynthia Swanson, and the nice thing about Page Habit is that when you get a book from them, it's all annotated by the author, so it's got all these sticky post-it notes in there, if you can see those, that have little notes and dots from the author, which is just a really nice little added bonus to the reading experience. And this one is another thriller, like I mentioned, so I'll read the inside flap. In the autumn of 1960, Angie Glass is living an idyllic life in her Wisconsin hometown. At 21, she's married to handsome, charming Paul and has just given birth to a baby boy. But one phone call changes her life forever. When Paul's niece, Ruby, tells them that her father, Henry, has committed suicide and her mother, Silja, has gone missing, the newlyweds drop everything to be by Ruby's side in the small upstate town of Stonehill, New York. Angie thinks they're coming to the rescue of Paul's grief-stricken young niece, but Ruby is a composed and enigmatic 17-year-old who resists Angie's attempt to nurture her. Staying in Henry and Silja's eerie and ultra-modern house on the edge of the woods, Angie discovers astonishing truths about the complicated Glass family. Dun dun dun! So it sounds really, really intriguing. This one is more of a literary thriller, which I'm really down for, so hopefully I enjoy this one. And lastly, I was sent this book by the PR team that are publicising the movie adaptation, and that is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. So I was meant to go and see the film of this, but then it wasn't very well. But I am actually really looking forward to seeing the film. The trailer looks brilliant, and I wasn't really that aware of this book, so I'm glad it's been brought to my attention and that I now have a copy because it's being adapted. It's set just after World War II, and it's about a female writer who is contacted by the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society, who lived in Guernsey under German occupation during World War II, and I think it's a bit of an epistolary novel. Yes, it's written in like letter styles between the characters, and it's about her finding out about their story. And I don't know, the trailer makes it look like there might be a little romance in here, but that's just going off the film trailer. It sounds really good anyway, so I'm really pleased to have a copy. Those are all of my new books. However, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Do let me know if there's anything I've mentioned here that you are interested in, whether you've already read it and you have thoughts on it, or are just interested in reading it in the future. I'd love to know. But until next time guys, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!